It's time for the tight end preview, and that tight end preview is going to start right now.
Sounds like football, baby.
Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle. It's another gorgeous Tuesday here, August 24th.
What?
Oh, hello?
What happened to my show? Where does this music come from? What's going on
here? This is the Smackdown.
No, this is Word on the Streets, not the Smackdown. What are you doing?
Oh.
You're going to smack me down. I'll send my Warriors after you.
Well, if I'm going to get a beat down, I might as well get started on my drink of the day here.
Cheers to that. Unofficial sponsor right here, Jim Beam Honey. Let's do it.
What up, listeners? Welcome in to the first collaboration episode between Bob, Mr. Word on the Streets himself, and myself, Kyle August, host of the Fantasy Football Smackdown. We got a big announcement on today's show, and we didn't want to wait. We didn't want to drag it out on you guys at all. But jumping right into it here on the top, excited to announce that both Bob and myself are going to be collaborating on some in-season content this year. We're going to start it off right here on today's show with the tight end preview. We've already been on guests on each other's shows in the past once or twice, but man, this is good. It's exciting, man, and I'm excited to start this journey with you as we get closer and closer to the 2020 season.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Had to go and get my own show to be able to be a guest on yours. Do what I got to do, and I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. We'll get together, do these shows together on the 3 times a week during the in season. Mm-hmm. We'll do the waiver wires on Tuesdays, and we'll do your sit starts on Thursday and Friday. And then I'll still have my live stream on Tuesday nights. I'm sure you'll pop on there from time to time.
Yeah.
And including the one that's happening 2 days ago, if you're listening to this on Thursday from my show, and happening later today for your show.
Yeah, dude, I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a ton of fun. You've been doing a great job. I mean, I had you on. I think it was I might have just been the second or third show I did of the Smackdown. Second guest ever on the Smackdown after we rebranded from the fellas, and had a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed what you're doing with Word on the Streets. For people who don't know and maybe haven't listened to prior episodes, Bob and myself have known each other for a really long time. And now, like he said, he went out, started his own show, and eventually has had a really, really busy summer. And it really got to the point where we're both sitting down like, hey, we're both kind of doing our own thing. And those things are definitely going to continue. Like Bob mentioned, he's going to be doing the live stream stuff. If you're a listener to the Smackdown, or if you've been listening to Fellas for a long time, we've had no YouTube or video presence. That's going to change a little bit here through the in-season stuff. So if you're not following Bob, you need to. If you're not checking out Word on the Streets, go back and listen. A lot of good evergreen content there. But really, it came down to it, man. Like in season, I think it's going to be a lot more fun. You and I just have a little bit of consistency there after having multiple guests every single week and going through that grind. But in season, man, I think it's going to provide the best content for everybody. So I know you're probably looking forward to that, right? As far as scheduling goes, we're set once calendar flips, right?
Yeah, 3 shows today, one yesterday, and a live stream tomorrow. I'm very comfortable sitting down and having a little consistency and getting those couple recordings in a week and knowing who it's going to be and not having to say
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of great guests on. That's the fun part about it. The Twitter community is so awesome, and you just send a message to a couple of collaborative guys that I work with on some other things, and sure enough, boom, all of a sudden you got a guy or two for a show, and you're rocking and rolling on whatever your subject matter is. So it's been a good time. For those who've been listening to my podcast and aren't familiar with Kyle, why don't you give a little background on how you and the Old Fellas podcast started and that journey for yourself, and I'll come back around and do the same for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I kind of alluded to, it did rebrand after 4 seasons of doing the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast with my buddy Seth. It was a great run, 500 episodes.
I almost poured one out on my laptop for me.
That would have been rough. We would have been doing the show on my own. That wouldn't have been a good start. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Seth and I go way back even before the podcast, great friends and everything. So that made that show, easy to do. And but he decided to hang up the mic, which I totally get, busy times, but I still have a passion for podcasting. Obviously, we're all into fantasy football. That doesn't need to be said, but I just want to keep it going. So I kept doing the show, rebranded as the Fantasy Football Smackdown. That was in May or so, maybe June. Started releasing shows. I've had kind of similar to your format as far as like a different guest every single week. But trying to keep it loose. That's what I really like about your show too, is like great information, but we don't take ourselves too seriously from the standpoint of like, gotta have some fun in this, right? Obviously,
Sure.
we all strive to win. That's what we're doing. We strive to bring you guys great information to help you win leagues. So in that we definitely share it. So I was hoping, I wasn't quite sure how the in-season content was going to work out, but I think this is going to be great. So, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at KyleFFFellas. I write a little bit too here and there for Ball Blast Fantasy Football and Fantasy Pros. So that's fun. Usually kick out maybe an article a week or so, and then just doing the podcast right now twice a week through the month of August, and then obviously looking forward to hanging out with you, Bob, as we get into September.
And then for myself, I've been playing this fantasy game only for 5-6 years. You could call that a rookie in many circles.
You're welcome. You're welcome, by the way.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm not editing that out because I don't edit anything out. We may have started this show over about 4 seconds in because I hit the wrong button, but that's okay. That's a different story. Didn't edit it. So anyhow, several years back, you said, let's play fantasy football. I said, nay, not going to do it. You said, next season, let's play fantasy football. I said, nope. Sure enough, finally, I'm like, all right, fine. Can I get my Goodwill receipt? Because it's going to be charity.
That's a donation you made.
Donation. And then I enjoyed it, man. Good group of our friends are in that Cave Out League. And then from there, next season, I started up a Friends and Family League, commissioned a Capology League because why not go all the way in? That's not true. I didn't commission that year. I did the Dynasty where I drafted the worst team I've ever drafted the following year in the Fellows Dynasty. Then the next year, I added Capology. So, and then I started making my own little Word on the Streets videos for the 2 leagues I ran because why not have fun, give recaps, and that's just a fun thing for me, for being a commish and getting the, the owners involved, league managers involved. And then, it's kind of coronavirus. I'm like, I'm kind of bored. I kind of like to, let's make this Word on the Streets official. So here we are. I think that's enough talk about that, though. I think we should get into these tight ends because everybody loves tight ends.
Everybody was waiting for this, man. I kept getting asked, like, when's the tight end preview coming? I'm tired. I don't need to hear about running backs, wide receivers. Who cares? Give me the tight ends.
Screw that. So, all right, here's the deal, tight ends. In most leagues, you start 1. Some of them you start 2. I've been in a pretty deep dynasty where it was tight end premium, start 2 premium, or tight ends. I hated it. I know some people loved it. But yeah. Anyway, but in general, you start 1, and if you don't get one of the top guys, you're streaming them. Pretty much sound correct to you there?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about redraft for me. There's one more guy that I don't mind where his value is at, but a lot of these guys you got to pay the price. So it's kind of, for me, it definitely has been through draft season. It's Kelsey Kittle or bust, and then we're streaming and looking for those weekly ads who we can start with, in our season, and then play the game through the year and hope you hit one.
Sure. So the idea here is to be talking about some of the players, kind of their ADP they go at, where you might snag them in at, and also some of these names that during the season we're going to be doing our waiver wire, or as you do your little waiver wire sniping articles and things like that you like to do. See, I pay attention.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. But players you can look for during the season that can have those good, one-off games, 2-off games that you can grab off the wire. It's something to also pay attention to. Some guys that just aren't sexy, period. And some of them there's some opportunity for. So let's go at it, man. Let's Travis Kelce and George Kittle. I've got them in, actually I got Kelce in a tier of his own, and then George Kittle and Mark Andrews and kind of tier 2 behind him. And you said it's Kelce or Kittle or bust. Do you slide Andrews into that in and around Kittle, or is he still mystery if he's really going to be the man this year?
Yeah, for me, it is, and you're right. I've never taken Kittle over Kelce, so maybe putting him in a tier on his own totally makes sense. I do think those guys, I have them in the same tier just because I do both think they're second round picks. I would definitely say if you're considering taking one of those too early, whoever you prefer, the best way to approach them is not to rank them against the tight ends, but rank them in overall. You know, what I like to do as far as draft strategy is, you know, depending, you know, rank 2 or 3 rounds worth of players and then see where they fall in. You know, over the weekend I had a draft. I had I think 5th slot or whatever, so that put me at 20. My second round pick was at 20th overall. And I just felt like, you know, there's only 19 guys I like. And then it's Travis Kelce. And it just, everything kind of fell. It went, you know, different order, but relatively chalk to that, as it usually does in the first couple of rounds. So I took Kelce, you know. So you just have to decide for yourself on where you're ranking those two against the other positions. For me, I do have Mark Andrews in my second tier, but I actually have him ranked 4th overall. I think Andrews obviously has a lot of upside, where we probably have, you know, a lot of years of talking about Mark Andrews, as last year was his breakout season, just under 100 targets, you know, 850 yards, 10 touchdowns, you know, crazy good, led the position. But for me, the reason I have Andrews at 4 and not in a tier with those two top guys is just because I think the Ravens overall, the touchdown regression's coming. Lamar's not throwing 36. He's not leading the league. I think he comes down closer to maybe 25, 26 touchdowns. And then for me, that just keeps Andrews' upside a little bit capped, you know, when comparing them to those two monsters.
So I will say that I did a show earlier. We were talking about quarterbacks, and we were talking about Lamar Jackson and how people say, "Oh, but you get a quarterback and a running back all in one," and you do. You got the top 6 running back and half point per PPR, half point.
Yeah,
crazy. You also got a quarterback that threw for less yards in 15 games than Mitch Trubisky, and less yards than Allen over in Carolina in only 12 games.
Dang. Yeah.
Kyle Allen. Sorry, I went blank on the first name.
No, you're good. There. They all blend together.
Yeah. And for Kyle's listeners who don't know, I have, I'm pretty sure I have early Alzheimer's. Every once in a while, I will have names escape my brain. Kyle will play charades with me. It's a great game. Hope you guys enjoy it and follow along.
It's entertaining. It makes for a good time. But no, I mean, I think it's going to be it's going to be tough for that Baltimore offense to have the efficiency that they had last year. So while you know, I like Andrews, he's my tight end 4. I have him in dynasty leagues. I'm pumped. You know, unless it's tight end premium, really, I'm probably just not going to get him because he's usually going to go as tight end 3 off the board and just ahead of, you know, where I'm willing to pay up.
Yeah. And this year with so many running backs pushed up from the second round into the first round, it's really pushing, because last year, even in a 10-team league, you're looking at Kittle on the turn there, and it's pushing them all the way almost to the second turn. So it's kind of nice. So you can still swing around, grab that premium tight end, and then push a running back, hopefully back to yourself if that's what you're looking for, or a little better wide receiver. So not a bad little take you had there at all. All right, tier 3. I'm starting out with the guy who I'm thinking you're starting in as your third guy. He's my 4th guy, and that's Zach Ertz, and then followed by Hayden Hurst and Darren Waller. That's my tier 3 for me. And how you sitting there with Zach Ertz? Fantasy Pros also has him 4th, Waller 5th, but Hayden Hurst they have down at 13. So out of the tight end 1 landscape. So that's where mine.
Yeah, I like Zach Ertz a lot this year. I like his value is, in my opinion, is really solid. Where he's going, like the previous seasons, he was kind of in that tier with Kittle and Kelce. So you were paying almost, you know, early, you know, late second round picks, early thirds for, you know, any of those trios of tight ends. Now Ertz is kind of those other two have separated themselves from Zach Ertz. He had a rough start to last season. Dallas Goedert coming on, those types of things, but Ertz definitely showed at the end of last year. He still got it. That offense got rolling. You know, everyone was pointing to, you know, it took so many injuries for Ertz to do what he did and Sanders to do what he did. But I mean, are we really looking at anything different as we've gone through training camp? I mean, Alshon Jeffrey's still not there. A lot of unproven commodities in that offense. And Ertz is 100 targets in the bag, over 130 targets the last 2 seasons. I just think he's somebody that at some points earlier in August, you could get him in the 5th round, and it was just crazy to me. I'll take 4th round Zach Ertz as long as you're really comfortable with those first 3 picks and you want to avoid the stream. He's kind of like the last resort for me, you know, like that scene from Back to the Future 3 or whatever, where they put the thing like the point of no return, like that's it's a picture of Zach Ertz. And if you blow through that, you're going off the edge of the cliff if you don't have enough speed. So that's where I'm at with Zach Ertz. But I love the Hurst pick, and I love the fact that when people make calls and stick to it. Like, I try to have my rankings really reflect how I would draft these guys in what order. But Hurst, to me, if you were going on just off of like the current value of where he's being taken, he's tight end 11 in ADP. He's going towards the middle back end of the 8th round. And I just think he has a truckload of upside. And I'm assuming you have your projections in here too. Is that just, is it just opportunity for you?
So yeah, I got him down for 89 targets, 69 receptions. Nice. The beer in your mouth. Couldn't finish that one.
Mid-drink. I was like, shoot. Man, that was good.
816 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. And I don't really think any of that is outlandish, especially when you look at he's a very athletic receiver, practically a receiver, tight end. And he's filling in for the shoes for a guy who also did great. They still didn't really fill in Sanu's spot with anything that's spectacular. Mm-hmm. Opportunities there. Gurley might take away some passing game from him. I could definitely see that. Gurley could also be more limited too, and that passing game not really take off from the backfield, which would help him even more. So I just see the opportunity being there for him. Yeah. Is it a risk? Where I have him, am I going to draft him in that spot? No. But what I like about it is when I look at projections, I will bounce him towards ADP, and then I'll also bounce him towards the draft room, hopeful that I know the draft room and my league mates. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to change literally from, I did 3 drafts this week and each draft room was totally different. We had one where pretty much everybody took one quarterback, maybe 2. We had one where people were taking 2 and 3. Yeah. People were taking 2 tight ends and sometimes 3. I'm like, what the hell? So push that value down to me. I'll take it. But so you got to pay attention to the room you're in and what's going on with those guys. So a lot of people are drafting late in the year because of all this COVID stuff. So there's still some beneficial information to those who are drafting late. So I wouldn't take him as early as you would normally take the tight end 5. But in the back of my mind, I'd have him in the pocket like, okay, getting closer to time. I got 2-3 running backs, 2-3 wide receivers. I'm pulling the trigger in the 7th, 8th round, something like that. Sure. I'll take it early if I need to. ADP for him is 111, which 120 would be 10 rounds. That's the 9th round. Yeah, I wouldn't mind pulling the trigger in the 7th, 8th round early just to have him and feel like I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I definitely think you're spot on there. I think when you were talking about how the Falcons offense is going to look this year, one thing to factor in is like Gurley's passing production was down last year. We've seen it before, that he can definitely do it, just depends on how much work they want to give him. Him and Freeman, their touches were almost identical on a per game basis, but Freeman was actually heavily involved in the passing game for the first time since that magical season, which he was RB1. And we still had Hooper put up 75 catches in 13 games. He would have definitely been on pace for 900 plus yards if he played all 16. So I think there's definitely enough to go around in this offense. I love the Falcons offense this year. The only real question, I guess, is really just, Hurst couldn't, and we know the talent of Mark Andrews, but Hurst couldn't break into that offense in Baltimore over the last couple seasons. Is he the guy? But when you kind of look and try to draw conclusions to that, Atlanta was willing to give up a 2nd round pick for him. So they obviously feel like there's talent there, former 1st round pick. Regardless what you think of where if they should have drafted him there or not, there's definitely talent and it's in a position where he's going to get a lot of targets, a lot of opportunities. So I like him over some of these other guys that, have some uncertainty. So he's tight end 10 for me. But as far as value goes, I love it because he's, other than one other guy, he's one of the best values you can get in that, late middle part of your drafts.
Yeah, and if you take the number you just threw out there, 75 receptions in 13 games for Atlanta for the tight end.
For Hooper, yeah.
For Hooper, thank you. There it is. That's a memory game. There it is. Boom. Drinking game. For those playing, that's a drinking game. Drink. Anyway, you divide that out and multiply it back up. That's 92 receptions he would have been on pace for if he would have played all 16. And I'm asking for just under 70. Mm-hmm. So if he is healthy and gets that same flow, that could be even crazier. But I don't expect that. You can't, you want to be reasonable. Yeah. So reasonable has him that high. All right, let's move on. That's enough talk about that man. If y'all haven't gone out and drafted him yet, what the hell are you doing? Let's talk about Darren Waller, the last guy in tier 3. And this is a team that has a lot of changes this year. That's the Raiders. They even changed where they live now. They don't even care about nothing.
Yes.
So I have him as my wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he is 5 in Fantasy Pros.
5th in rankings or 5th in ADP?
ADP. Sorry.
Yeah. Yep. So I got it. Yeah, I got him at 5th at ADP, middle of the 5th round. And you said it. It was a slip. You said you have him at wide receiver 6. That's why you have to have him where you have him, though. I think he's a wide receiver. He is super athletic. We saw him get his opportunity last season, 3rd in the NFL amongst tight ends with 117 targets. But you said a lot of things had changed. They went into that season thinking they had Antonio Brown. He froze his feet off, and whatever that did to his brain, he gone. Then they draft Henry Ruggs. They have Brian Edwards, who's getting absolutely hype trained. We saw Hunter Renfrow, at times last season. He finished off with 2 really strong games and seemed to eat into Waller's value. But I have him ranked at tight end 5. So just one spot ahead of you, right at where ADP is at. So I like the upside that he has. We've seen Derek Carr 3 years in a row. This tight end has led this offense in yards. My only concern is, are you taking him in the 5th? I mean, are you doing that? No.
No. I'm usually punting unless I just absolutely love someone personally. I get hives passing in the 1st and 2nd round, even in 3rd round, and grabbing tight end. Mm-hmm. I'm likely doing a 10-team full PPR draft next Monday, and so on that one, I might reach for one of the top guys, depending on where my pick is, just to have that positional advantage in a 10-team. Mm-hmm. But I have a personal. I hate giving up that draft capital for a tight end, because once you get past the guys to get all the damn receptions, you need the touchdown, and you're guessing. And I don't like to give the draft capital for that. And so last year he had 1,100 yards. I have him slated for 68 receptions instead of the 90 he had last year. Mm-hmm. Only 862 yards, 5 touchdowns instead of I think 3 he had last year. Yeah, and that makes him 5. It's tight end is so easy to jump up there so quick.
Yeah, but a touchdown here and there will sway your ranking overall for sure.
So do you think the rookies come in and make it happen and push him back, or is this old reliable Derek Carr just, here you go, buddy?
I think Waller is talented enough, and this offense will utilize him enough that he will return. I think he can finish top 6 at the position. Like, I don't have any problem with that. It's just last year he was with, Ertz and Andrews and, where Kittle and Kelsey ended up, at the end of the year. Like, Waller was right there. But I think he is the least likely to repeat that performance of those guys. You and I are in a 14-team tight end premium league. I took Waller. I think that was in round 4 or 5. It might have been 5. Just because it's tight end premium. But beyond that, I'm not banking on it. I just don't want to pay the price. If Waller, for some reason, was getting knocked down and he was in round, maybe, 7 or 8, like, okay, I think that he's, can do what you just said pretty much. 70 catches is pretty reasonable, I think, for his talent. But it's just too rich for me. So I like the ranking, and I think we're on the same page as far as just not paying up for him.
Yeah. So he likes the Raiders like to target, or maybe Carr likes to target the tight ends. One of the tight ends he liked to target in past years is the guy I have ranked 7th. Next is what I was trying to say, and that's Jared Cook. So worked on a segue. It wasn't a pow. Didn't really make it. Wasn't a great segue, but the thought train was there. So that's Jared Cook. I have him tight end 7, and he's 10 on Fantasy Pros. Definitely a lot of opportunity there. Does Sanders scare you being added?
Sanders a little bit, but for me, I think that some of the production that I expect Alvin Kamara to see to regain form this year a little bit too. For me, Cook was really touchdown dependent. I mean, he was the most touchdown dependent tight end last season. And I just don't see those numbers necessarily repeating themselves. And when those touchdowns dry up, his targets just aren't there for me to have him, in this group. So this is where we're probably going to disagree the most. Even though like you had Hurst at 5, I have Hurst at 10. Like that's 5 spots. I have Jared Cook at tight end 19. Like I just don't want. I just think I'd rather it take some of the guys the younger guys I think have more upside. They're going to see more targets, and that I just don't see Cook's touchdown.
I've only got him for 52 targets, man.
How many touchdowns do you have?
6.
Yeah,
which he had 9 last year. I dropped him down to 6.
I just don't like the upside of Jared Cook. I get it. He's going 10th in ADP, 7th round. Again, neither of us are probably touching him there anyway because like Hurst is going after him. But for me, Cook is just somebody in that offense that I just don't trust. I think you're looking at, at best he's the 3rd best option. And as much as I don't like Sanders' value from a fantasy perspective, I do think Sanders can impact them enough, the Saints offense enough that Cook just won't have what he did last year.
Well, I think part of the problem here is what when you if you look at my rankings, Jared Cook starts my 4th tier.
Yep.
My 4th tier, tight end 7s, Jared Cook, followed by Evan Ingram, Chris Herndon, who I'm slightly in love with this year, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, also a target of mine, Gronk. I'm staying away, and everybody's grabbing him really early. Hopefully it works for them, except hopefully not in my league. Dallas Goedert, and then Blake Jarwin, another fan favorite of mine personally. Those guys are only separated by 1 touchdown because that's how tight end works.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
1 touchdown in 16 weeks, and you move from tight end 15 all the way up to tight end 7.
Yeah, it's definitely that's the cliff. So there's no point of drafting, and that's a great point. Is that there's no reason to draft these guys in around 6 or 7 when you can get a guy that we've and guys in the double-digit rounds for a few of us here that have similar upside. And when you're talking about 6 points or 7 point swing, that's over the course of the year. So I mean, you're literally like that's when we talk about streaming.
Half point per game average.
Yeah, like when you're talking about streaming, you guys are informed enough. You're obviously tuned in to shows. You're plugged into the news going around. You know where the matchups are at. Like, it just, to me, paying a price even in the 7th or 8th round is steep, knowing that you could just be looking at dropping that guy or having to burn 2 positions on another tight end. So that's why, unfortunately, this position gets a bad rap just because it is so close together.
One? I didn't hear
I guess
because it deserves one.
That's why I love tight end premium, though. It actually makes you like think a little bit. If you hit on it, it's more valuable. But I'm with you on that. Like, I don't think Cook is a bad play if everything's equal. It's just his upside is not any higher than any of the rest of these guys for me.
So really, when you hit this tier, when I play, if I don't get one of those top guys, I am pretty much streaming. I'm hoping I'm hitting the Lamar Jackson of tight ends. I'm hoping I hit the Darren Waller of tight ends. So I'm looking for the guy who fits the profile. He's athletic. He's hopefully in an offense that can score, not just a sucky offense, but also doesn't have a ton of competition. That's often a nice added benefit. Not always necessary, but it's a nice added benefit, a la Darren Waller, right? So it's got good opportunity. Also, when you are streaming, last year it was Arizona. Oh, we're playing Arizona? Go grab that tight end. Free touchdown. The year before that, I'm drawing a blank on who it was, but there was a team the year before that. It might have been Miami or somebody. If you were playing them, go grab that tight end. It's a free touchdown.
Right.
So that's where that streaming game comes in. You got to pay attention. But if you're not the kind of person that likes to pay attention, go grab a stud tight end, spend the money, get him. You can always fill in wide receiver later. So
I found one thing. We'll reverse for a second here, real quick.
Please.
I wrote this article over at Ball Blast. It was exactly what we're talking about here as far as streaming the position and some guys that you can draft in your draft late rounds just to start the season with, and they're going to have good matchups, and you're going to start your streaming off right. You don't have to go to the wire right out of the gate. On Hayden Hurst, he was at the time tight end 14 in ADP. Might have gone up a spot or 2 here, but again, regardless, is that you can start your season, right? You can start your season with Hayden Hurst and the Atlanta Falcons going up against Seattle at Dallas the first 2 weeks. You mentioned Arizona was the worst, but Seattle Seahawks and the Cowboys were actually were at the bottom right there with them, 31st, 30 and 30th in points allowed. So, I mean, not only are you getting a guy that I think has a lot of upside over the course of the year, you're getting at least 2 weeks of streaming potential. And then you can decide if you want to cut bait or not. But I think that's why Hurst is so, he's so attractive to me when you're talking about his value and combined with those matchups. So sorry, I was trying to look for this earlier.
No, you're good.
Finally found it.
Two things on that. One, y'all just heard him call Hayden Hurst attractive. 2,
you seen his locks, man? I mean, I'm jealous. He could send me some out.
Shoot. And two, yeah, any team that's playing Dallas, start up those wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks. Anyway, maybe not. We'll see. New year. So in that tier, is there anyone that you're targeting? Because at this point, we don't need to break down player by player unless someone really stands out and we want to talk about them, target them. But Jared Cook, Evan Ingram, Chris Herndon, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Rob Gronkowski, Goddard, and Blake Jarwin. You got any people that stand out in there that are targets of yours that you like?
So I like the Herndon ranking. I don't have him ranked as high, but I do like just take a stab. The only problem is I think he plays Buffalo week 1. I think they have a tough match at week 1. So, but I like, taking the stab and keeping him on the radar. Evan Ingram, I think, has the most talent from this group, but he's just being drafted so high. We talked about that 7th round ADP right now, and just misses a lot of time. So that's why I almost forces you to stream. The 2 guys that I really like from this group, I think you asked me for 1, but I gave you almost 4 already. Mike Gesicki is my favorite target at the position. I think that what we saw from him last year was a good progression.
Did you look at his schedule?
At the Dolphins schedule?
Yeah.
They start with, I know it starts off tough because don't they have New England week 1?
Yeah. Before we go there real quick.
Sure.
Herndon. Here's Herndon. Here's a reason maybe not to draft him, but to pick him up later. He plays Buffalo week 1, as you said. Then he goes to Cleveland. Sure. Although their defense isn't bad. It's been getting better.
Yep.
Then they play New England, who last year was not a friendly place to play. And then he has a damn bye week in week 4. So go snag him week 5 when he plays Philadelphia, then Dallas, and then goes back to New England, but followed by Jacksonville, Miami.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's Herndon. And who are we going over to?
I was talking about Gesicki.
Gesicki.
Yeah. You're right.
Keep talking about Gesicki. You pulled it up already?
Yeah, at New England, Buffalo, at Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco. So the schedule isn't beautiful for sure. Yeah. But the great thing about Gesicki is he's being taken after besides Herndon, he's taken after all of these guys. He's tight end 14 off the board right now, going in 11th round. And that's why I just keep getting him, because a lot of times, unless teams are going to start taking 2 tight ends in your league, you can just wait and then grab Gesicki. He finished the year off really strong. 5 touchdowns in the final 6 games, which, we'll talk about with somebody else later on in the show. That's a small sample size. You don't honestly think it's going to repeat that. But after the week 5 bye that Miami had, the early bye week, they definitely made the shift to get Gesicki involved. He didn't have very many targets the first 3 weeks, but after the week 5 bye, he had 6+ targets in 9 of 12 games. I will buy into that. And that's why I don't mind taking him there. And I'll fight my way through those first couple weeks and just hope that, I'm at least seeing the targets go his way.
Well, and you can always argue that not a ton of hardcore talent around him to really take opportunities away from him. Mm-hmm. He should have a man that loves to chuck the ball everywhere, throwing the ball to begin the season. We'll see, right?
Yep.
And then even if he isn't, will Tua come in and he'll just be a safety valve for him? Mm-hmm. So the narratives are all over the place for him. It definitely could be good. So yeah. All right. So that's Herndon. Or that's Gesicki.
Gesicki, yep.
I was looking at Herndon on my page when I said that. I'm going after your boy Jarwin a little there.
Yeah, that was the other guy I really like. I'll let you talk. I'll let you. That his schedule is freaking beautiful, man. He's got
read that for me. Because I don't have it on my screen. So
he's got at the Rams. That's going to be the Sunday night game. Prepare for fantasy greatness from that game. Holy crap! Rams Cowboys in LA for week 1. Then he's got Atlanta at home, at Seattle. Mentioned how bad Seattle was against the tight ends last year. Cleveland week 4 at home. They're a tougher defense. But then he's got the Giants week 5 and the Arizona Cardinals week 6. I mean, there's maybe one tough matchup in there. Maybe one. I love Jarwin's schedule. I love his opportunity with, if they've listened to your show, any show, they should have heard this by now. 160 targets gone with Jason Witten and Randall Cobb. There is plenty to go around. There's so much to go around. I wish I had more Blake Jarwin. He's being drafted outside the top 20. I don't even think he has an ADP on Yahoo right now.
On Fantasy Pros, he is in the 16th round, 15.58, halfway through the 16th round. So that's pretty stinking nasty. That's called grab him with your last pick. Grab him, grab Herndon, almost grab Gesicki right there at the end.
Yeah,
any of those guys should be studs for you. So Dallas is looking to have a good year. They're looking to ball out. Will they win games? I don't know, but they have an offense that definitely looks potent.
For fantasy, we'll be rolling, man. We can take advantage of that because they are going to be putting up some numbers this year.
Exactly. I expect Dak Prescott to keep chucking the ball. I'm giving Gallup and Cooper each 120, 137 receptions, tons of not receptions.
Targets.
Whoa,
Yeah. I was going to say, targets. Let's go.
Targets. Sorry. Woo. Rewind the tape there. Yeah. 120 targets for Gallup, 137 for Cooper. CeeDee Lamb, I'm even giving 83 targets too. So that's a lot of targets going to those guys. And I'm still leaving 74 targets, 56 receptions, 611 yards, and 6 touchdowns for Blake Jarwin. There's still plenty, as Zeke would say, plenty to eat and make happen for that man in that offense. And if you got a choice of double covering Blake Jarwin,
so no, that's never going to happen.
Zeke Elliott, if he slips out of the backfield, you just got to pay attention to him, right? Or Gallup or Cooper or CeeDee Lamb. You can't do it. You can't damn do it. This team might not win on defense, but good God, your offense should keep you in the game.
Yeah. Every time I look at Blake Jarwin, I just keep moving him further and further up. I still have him too low. Like I should have him. Where do you have him 14? I have him 14,
one touchdown away from 7.
Yeah. See, I gotta put him up like up with the Hurst Gronkowski tier for me. Like that would be around 12. Like I don't think you can't overstate the schedule when you're talking about tight ends at that range. Like if you know you're streaming, at least start off on a high note with streaming. As much as I love Gesicki, the schedule isn't great, but I think he is good enough that he could be more than a streamer. Even if you don't think Jarwin can, if you're like, I'm not sure that this offense is going to be that good every week, but when they are, there's enough for Jarwin. That's fine. They're going to have to completely chuck the ball nonstop that first 3 weeks against, Sean McVay, Matt Ryan, and Russell Wilson. I mean, that's it's going to be craziness right there.
Absolutely. And what he said kind of alluded to a little pro tip there for you. If you like on defenses, you stream defenses. Well, last year I had a team, only one league with damn defenses. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take my defense 1 round early just so I can get the defense I want. And then take my kicker 1 round early and then take my streamer because that's all your last positional is anyway. Yeah. So a little sneaky move, right? Well, turned out I wasn't paying attention to that first week matchup, and the defense I took, it was a great defense, had one of the crappiest first week matchups and second week matchups, and the rest of the season looked great. And I was like, holy hell. Yeah. So what he was saying with tight ends is completely true. Make sure you pay attention to those matchups. They matter. So
yeah,
very good point.
Yeah. It's so freaking important. And you got like most of the time, I don't care who's playing who or bye weeks or any of that stuff, but what you're spot on when you're at those positions. It's worth taking a peek and just double checking because you don't want to have to be like, oh, great, I'm running the wire week 1, out of the gate. So
if you go late on quarterback and tight end and you plan to stream both, do you pay attention to whether they have the same bye week on a roster that does not have a lot of spots?
Not really. Like
not even on a short roster. Five, 6 spots.
Super flex. I will. That's the only time I look at bye weeks with quarterbacks. And that draft we were just actually kind of mentioned a second ago, that's a 14-teamer. I took my top 2 QBs that were on there, and I knew right before I took the second one, but I took Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan. They have the same bye week, and I was like, I'm good with that. Like that, I'm full strength for the rest of the year. I'm not even going to worry about week 10. No, not usually, just because bye weeks, especially this year. I think last year might have started in week 4. I seem to remember that they used to start in week 4 sometimes. This year, the first bye week's in week 5. So much stuff's going to happen in a month. True. So I don't really worry about that too often. But I'm also somebody that I would rather have the extra roster spot to play with than like an extra guy sometimes. So like I'm just always trying to work the wire and get that edge because not everyone's willing to put in that extra effort. So
there you go. All right. So see, myself, I like to not, if I know I'm streaming, I like to not have them the same week. That way I'm only rotating that one spot. Keeping my studs. You don't have studs on your bench usually, but
if they're early, like if you took Herndon's schedule is rough, we talked about, but if you took Herndon, right, and then you took Matthew, and let's say Matthew Stafford's another guy that has an early that week 5 bye, right? He's probably the lowest of the guys that are, or Derek Carr, like
Yeah.
No,
See, I don't want to cut Stafford.
right.
That's why I'd like to have that extra spot.
Yeah.
You know.
So I would definitely pay attention. If you're talking about the first 5, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, then yeah, maybe I might be more willing to look at that. But there's so much stuff changes within that first few weeks, and everyone's got the new hotness that off the wire and all that. Before you know it, like, you're probably all right. So
yeah, I dig it. All right, we're gonna go into a 2-person. I think it's a 2-person tier, maybe, and that's really more on points than anything else. But it's Jonnu Smith, who I'll take him or leave him myself this year.
Mm-hmm.
And tier 1 again, if you're looking at the show doc, tier 1 again, Tyler Higbee. Not really tier 1 again. Well, I have it 15 and 16 for Jonnu Smith and Tyler Higbee. And Smith is 17, so about only 2 spots off there. And Higbee, they have all the way up at 7. I love the man, and I'm burying him because I don't trust that offense to give Higbee all the work. He was given so much work based on originally kind of necessity with what's his face?
Gerald Everett.
Thank you, Gerald Everett. Drink. Being injured, and I think that really played into his productivity. I do love him. He's very athletic, great guy, great player, but I just can't see bringing him all the way up to 7 somehow. Talk to me and tell me where you sit with him while I pull up where I have him. My stats here.
I have Higbee outside of that tier of where I'm comfortable. So when you're talking round 6, 7th overall in ADP, he's back in around 6. But for me, Higbee is just somebody, really hard to trust. Super small sample size, 2 games against the Cardinals in there. You guys
was that the small sample size you were going to mention earlier?
Yeah, that was the other guy. So like Higbee and Gesicki were both solid, on fire to start that or to finish the season. Obviously, Higbee was just a monster at the end of the year, 100 yards every game. So, he was getting a touchdown every game. But 2 of those games were against the Cardinals, which we know they were giving up on average a touchdown a game to tight ends, which is insane.
Yeah.
And Gerald Everett was out. I mean, that should not be overlooked. I mean, Everett is definitely more. He's not he's like Higbee is a more complete tight end. He had a contract extension because of that, right? He can kind of do it all at the tight end position. But for fantasy, I don't care who can block. If Gerald Everett's the one getting the targets, then that's the tight end I'm going to want. And Gerald Everett is not even being drafted right now. So when you look at the splits, Higbee for one has never done anything up until last season. But even up through week 11 last year, Tyler Higbee had 202 yards on 26 catches. Gerald Everett had 408 on 37 catches, neither of which are fantasy relevant really at that time. But I mean, 200 yards through 11 games. So it would be very tough for me to just think that he can do even half of what he did over the course of a year and pay a 6th round price tag for. There are so many guys, and I've talked about it. You've talked about it on all these shows, running backs, wide receivers that especially the receivers you can hammer in those middle rounds. There's no way I'm taking Tyler Higbee as much as I love this Rams offense. I mean, I know I took him in a mock draft show we did. I think I got him around 9. Like, okay,
sure.
like I'd take him there and see what happens. But I'm probably still streaming, right? Like that's my idea. Yeah. And if the best part of streaming is if you hit on a guy, you don't have to keep going to the wire. That would be the intent. But man, he's just so overpriced this year, in my opinion. Like I would rather take, Blake Jarwin at the end of my draft. And if I really want a piece of this Rams offense, I'll just take Gerald Everett. Like I picked him up in every dynasty league I could this year because if they're going to play this 12 personnel, I'll take the cheap guy, So that's where I'm at with him. But looks like you and I are on a similar page here.
We are. And so I give Goff almost 600 passing attempts, and I give about 130 to each Robert Woods and Kupp. Mm-hmm. I split 100 attempts between Reynolds and Jefferson because I think between them we'll get to around 100, but neither one to 100. And that leaves about 120, not to mention running backs, but leaves about 120 targets, 130 targets between Higbee and Everett. And I definitely weighted 77-53 in the targets to Higbee and 5 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns to Higbee. But without one of those 2 guys getting injured or one of those guys becoming more the passing or the run blocker type deal, we don't know what that's really going to look like for a whole season. We don't know what defenses are going to do. We don't know if McVay's going to be smart about it and make audibles. If he starts sliding more of those 50 receptions from Everett to Higbee, you've got gold. Mm-hmm. And, you've got that guy that's worth it. But if they started sliding those back to Everett, who was doing fine early in the season, not great, but fine, then you're like, holy hell, I wasted a really good pick. So
yep, exactly.
Yeah. Without injury or something weird happening, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
So let's slide past Higbee. Boom. That's what y'all got to look forward to this season.
Yes, you're welcome, SmackDown listeners. This is gonna be good times.
Someone in the alumni league called you a smart ass. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Maybe you are a smart ass, but I'm definitely quick-witted.
Yes, 100%. I'll bring the names. You bring the wits, all right?
There you go. Gonna get the dad joke award here. All right, let's wrap a few more of these guys in here before we call it on this show. So after that, we got Austin Hooper, Irv Sexy Smith. I don't know why I threw that in there. TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Ebron, Jack Doyle, injury possibly rules. And then we're getting to Derek Fells, Max Williams. I'm not really caring to talk about those guys at 23, 24. So anything you like in this bottom little tier, this mesh of poo?
It's all, man, it's rough, dude. You talk Hooper, his ADP prices him out. He's not the same. He's not in the same opportunity as it was in Atlanta. He's not like a talent that I think can overcome that. And he's just being drafted too damn early. When you look at Noah Fant, Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson are almost in the same boat. Like as those guys are talented. I'm just not sure what the target's going to look like, and I'm concerned as hell about Noah Fant. I love Noah Fant. I wish that he was in an offense that would feature him. Never saw more than 4 targets in a game with Drew Lock. Then they added Jerry Jeudy. Then they added Hamler. Then they added Melvin Gordon. I'm just like, man, I love it for Drew Lock. I love it for the Broncos offense. I think they're gonna be more fun to watch this year for sure. But for fantasy and Noah Fant's value, he's just a guy I'm not going to pay the price. He's going at tight end 13, I believe, right now in ADP.
12, 120, so the end of the 10th round.
Yeah, like that's just, again, we've talked about a bunch of names here you can get out or later, like 2-3 rounds more later. He's just not a guy that I'll ever own based off his value. So the guy that, the only guy that on this whole list I've really owned this year is Irv Smith. I
love Irv Smith.
I took him in our K-Val league. I took him with my very last pick as my second tight end. I already had Gesicki, who I love. And do I expect Irv Smith to do a lot out of the gate? Like, no, I'm not going to start him. But if you have a second roster spot to burn and you're looking for upside, I think Irv Smith, as far as talent, and opportunity, because you talk about the crowded places, with Noah Fant, opportunity, they didn't bring anybody else in other than Justin Jefferson, the rook. So Irv Smith, man,
they've been lining him up outside and all kinds of things.
I love
that's hot right there.
I love him, man. Like it's I can't rank him any higher because the uncertainty. But if I knew, that was the thing though, if we knew that he was going to get 80 targets, 85 targets, he'd be in the top 10 for everybody. So I'll just take the shot on that and see if it comes to fruition.
I bought my crystal ball at Walmart on clearance. It's got a crack on it.
It's a rollback crystal ball.
Yeah. Not really intent much, but no. If the coach speak is real out there, there's an opening with Diggs leaving. They have receivers that can possibly get it done. They got Justin Jefferson. They got Thielen. Can get it done. Is Thielen going to be old man Jenkins, or is he going to be fine? I really think he's going to be fine. I don't doubt it at all, and I'm not going to consider him an injury concern or slowing down because really he's the only guy in town. Are they going to be a high-powered, heavy passing offense? No, I don't really think so. Especially no. But you got Kyle Rudolph in there. No, you just don't.
Yeah.
I just think he has a lot of opportunity. So that's why I like him late. If you go back to Noah Fant, because we just did go back to Noah Fant, that's how that just happened. With so many guys on the field that can do so much, hopefully that can put him in scoring position more. That's where the big body of the tight end can come in and make it happen, and him not be trying to throw to his old tight end from college. That shit better not happen. Was it Alberto? Was it?
Alberto.
Alberto. We're going to stay with O because that's so much easier to say.
Even I can't bring that name in. Yes. Even I can't bring that name in here. So, man, I do, man. I love the talent of Noah Fant. It's going to be that offense is going to be interesting overall for sure. To keep an eye on, see who gets the looks. And
as much as I love Austin Hooper for last year, I don't love his situation with the Browns this year in this scenario, and I just don't trust him enough to give him anything more than tight end 17. That's all you're getting, Austin Hooper. Sorry, buddy. So that's what we got for you. That's what we call a show around here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, all right. So, Kyle, before you go, for my listeners who aren't familiar with you yet, but will be, tell them where they can find you in the ears and in your writing.
Yeah. So you can find
on Twitter.
And on Twitter. Yes, of course. On Twitter at Kyle FF Fellas. You can follow the show handle at FF Smackdown Pod. But check out the Fantasy Football Smackdown wherever you're listening to this show. Just search Smackdown pretty much. It'll come up. You'll see the red black logo. And like I said, drop 2 episodes a week through the month of August. A lot of good evergreen content there. So go back if you're still getting prepared for drafts. You've already buzzed through Word on the Streets. A lot of good stuff there for you guys. But you can find my written content over at Ball Blast Football and also over at Fantasy Pros from time to time. But if you're following me on Twitter, I always retweet that stuff out. If I make any appearances on any other shows or live streams, then, it's all over there, man. So, man, I'm really looking forward to this. This was a ton of fun. I think it's going to be a good 2020 season. Hopefully we can bring people some championships. But man, I'm looking forward to the season to get started so I can start setting some lineups and doing the show with you, man. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Hell yeah. So I can be found on Twitter at Bob's3Toad on the YouTube, so we can see our pretty faces on YouTube at Bob's3Toad Warriors. The Facebook group page is the Word on Streets Fantasy Football Group. We need a little love there. We need a little action. It's kind of quiet over there. Instagram is non-existent. It's just my logo. Don't go there.
I don't even have one, so
I made it. I put my logo on there, and I'm like, well, what the hell else am I going to do? There's no words.
I hear you.
So, as he said, shows right now, I got them 2 times a week. But if you're listening to my show, then hopefully you enjoyed the live stream yesterday. If you're listening on Kyle's feed, tune back in for the live feed later today.
Yeah, Tuesday the 25th.
At 8 p.m. That's right, 8 p.m. Central Time. Very important, Central Time. Yeah. If you tune in at different time zone, you can be an hour early or you're just going to miss the show altogether. Don't do that. So that's been Bob's 3-Toed Warriors with Kyle FF Fellas from the SmackDown on our first collaborative episode, saying that soon enough, you'll be able to hit the waiver wire, set your lineups, and dominate your opponents. But until then, we'll see you. It's the collaborative